For the benefit of the gentleman who asked me on YouTube the other day whether I could look at the Amrut dark rum, here we are. And in point of fact, I have another set of reviews about the Amrut Gold as well, because in Whiskey Live 2024, I went over to the Amrut stall where they had their entire line of rums, or the commercially available line of rums, the gold, the white, the dark, all available at the same time. And since I hadn't dealt with them for quite some time before, I thought I'd give them all a shot because, okay, so I have tasting notes going back 10 years, but perhaps the blend had been changed. Perhaps they had, my own palate had altered a little bit. So I felt it was reasonable to give it a revamp. Overall, not a whole lot, but just to get back into it. So Amrut Distilleries, of course, is from India, and they made their name in whiskey, not actually rum, even though they had been making rum since 1948 when the company was founded. What they made that rum from at that time was anybody's guess, because there's a strong tradition of using jaggery to make rum, then to add a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then to bottle it with whatever. So that's pretty much around the way rums have been made in India for time out of mind, and we shouldn't really pretend to anything else. However, given the reputation that Amrut has for its whiskies, one would be reasonable to assume that the rums got a similar bump up. I kind of don't think so. Now, this is the Amrut Distillers Two Indies Gold Rum, and they do have others like the Old Port Deluxe and so on, and a few others that make the international circuit. But you never really see Amrut very much in the festival circuit promoting this stuff. Whiskey Live is actually one of the few times I've actually seen them with their entire range there, and they have not ever done anything that I am aware of, single cask, exactly made, aside from the stuff that they sold Velier for the Habitation Velier Amrut a few years ago, which really was quite spectacular and shows the potential of what they could one day aspire to themselves, if they ever got there. The Two Indies part, so West Indies and East Indies, of course, that's what it is. So the East Indies part is supposed to be pot still, made from jaggery, one pass through pot still, and then set to age in ex-bourbon barrels. We got to be a little careful with the West Indian side of things, because although some bloggers have mentioned in the past that the rum is made from Jamaica, Barbados, and Guyanese pot still distillates that have been blended, aged, and then mixed in with the jaggery portion from the East Indies, the Amrut webpage for this rum right now in 2025 basically says that it is Jamaican only, not Barbados, not Guyanese, just Jamaican, right? The aging is never actually mentioned, nor are we told whether once the two components were married together, whether they were subsequently aged. But we are kind of sort of told that the rum is around 3 to 4 years old. And I think we could reasonably hang our hats on that one. There's no reason for them to tell us anything different, right? If anything, they'd say it's 5 or more. That said, it's 42.8%. And I have been asked a number of times what that percentage actually means. Well, in the old British imperial system, that's 75 proof. And I don't know why they keep sticking with it. I mean, it's almost like an international standard to be 40%, but for some reason, India just loves going its own way, which I just can't give them enough kudos for. 42.8% is what it is, 75 proof in the old way. The question then arises is it any good now or any better than the original that I had tasted all those years back? I don't know. Nosing it tells you quite a bit about what you're getting. So first of all, the obscure stuff first, right? It's a bit of overripe cashews, that kind of oranges that have been left in the sun for too long, a little bit of avocados, salt, brine, red olives, not green ones. There's a little bit of cinnamon and cloves in there. It's a slightly sweet, but there's a certain tawny, brownish kind of taste to it. That is far from unpleasant, but it does tend to bend a little bit more towards the West Indian side of things than anything rather more exotic. That said, not really tasting a whole lot of Jamaica here. Whatever it is has been subsumed in the aging and in the blend. So at best, it kind of marries into an interesting little cohesive whole. Tasting it is another question entirely, though. This is one of those cases where, as far as I'm concerned, the flavors meld reasonably well, but they don't make enough of a statement for themselves and aren't distinctive enough or complex enough, for that matter, to really make you sit up and take notice. And so again, you get in the cashews, you get in the avocados, you get in the brine, the olives, the cinnamon, the black currants, a little bit of dark fruit, not a whole lot, molasses. It is a completely serviceable rum if you're willing to go a little bit off the reservation. It is a rum. There's no two ways about it. But at the same time, the tastes are a little bit raw here. And there's that jaggery component that will strike some people as strange. Now, a lot of people still think to this day that there's something about Indian rums that they just put a little bit of extra in there, whether that's caramel coloring or whether that's sugar or whether that is, glycerol or whatever. My hydrometer tests this out at 42.8%. So as far as I'm concerned, this thing is absolutely kosher from that perspective. Although, of course, we do know that it can be fooled. But it just tastes slightly different. And it tastes just a little bit too sweet for me to give it a complete and unequivocal pass. That said, it's made for the Indian market. Yes, we do get it in Canada. I'm sure it's available in many other parts of the world. But the truth is that the real sales of this rum continue to be, and for the foreseeable future will continue to be, I think, in India, not actually abroad. It's the diaspora that buys this, or crazy reviewers like me who have to review it so that you don't have to try it and spend your money on it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that Amrut made its reputation by making this incredible single malt that has won awards left, right, and center. And of course, they've got the adherents around the globe. And what they did in a move of marketing genius, if you ask me, is they made that whiskey really good and marketed it abroad so that by the time they got around to pushing it into the Indian markets, they introduced it originally in around 2005, and then it got into the Indian market maybe 10 years later. But by that time, the international reputation had been made, and therefore, with all the inherent, human nature of people, they say, oh, okay, if it's that good over there, then it's good enough for us and we'll take it. Now, they've never actually done that with rum. And I think that says a lot about the way Indians regard rum, that it's a low class, blue collar tipple meant for the greater agricultural masses out there to get a good drunk on. I think they could do better. The Amrut Habitation Vellier edition that came out all those years ago, that I named my rum of the year in, what was it, 21, 22, whenever it was, was really a spectacular piece of work. And I think that if they were to build on that and try to gain a market share for that kind of single cask exclusive bottling, they really could have something. This isn't it. This is not it. They could do it, I think, if they moved their marketing or their promo and their production philosophy a little bit to the side and maybe put up a skunk works and try to put this out. But for the moment, what we've got is this. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, running at around 78 points because for me, it really isn't worth more than that, even though it is an interesting sip and you could take it by itself. 42.8% isn't going to do very much for you in the sense that it's not going to tear your face off. It's not going to go down your throat and try and rearrange your insides. It's really kind of nice for that. If your tastes are a little bit obscure, then this is going to be something that you will want to try one of these days. There is also a gold, of course, which I think is slightly younger. And of course, we've talked about the white before. We're going to leave it here for now. I think I've talked too fast, too long, and too much already. But for what it's worth, if you have any comments on this rum from India, from a company that is well known for whiskeys rather than rums, please leave a comment or just let me know what you think. And I'd always like to know what other people's opinions are on this one. Until the next time, then, take care. Goodbye.